perspective on the temporality of understanding. So direct quote, this is section 336, page 336 in the German edition, English translation. To be projecting toward a potentiality for being, for the sake of which any Dasein exists. That is very explicit definition. Let's read it again. To be projecting toward a potentiality for being, for the sake of which any Dasein exists. Dasein. Let's go on. In understanding one's own potentiality for being is disclosed. So it has that whole disclosability that Sabine often talks about. It is not some fact. It's not a factoid. It's not a fact. You can't like lay out a bunch of facts and do fact checking. So let's just put that to rest right away. Now, let's get back to the existential. So he's going to elaborate on some of the points I just made. So rather, it is by maintaining itself in an existential possibility. He's repeating himself, but he's going to do something nuanced. I'm going to give you the tie-in now to enthinkment circle. Why is it an enthinkment? So this is my own wording. This is not the cessation of thinking or enthinkment, but a definite projection of thinking of one's own potentiality for being. This is why it's related to authenticity, because of this notion of the potentiality for being. Now, enthinkment, and in quotes, Heidegger says, and this is all from that section 336 so far, existence can be questionable. So he's questioning existence. And he's asking us to question existence. I'm going to cue over to Sabine, because this is where he mentions the German word concoction, das Infragestellen. What is that?
Very good. Das in Frage stehen in German. Let me pull that apart. In, of course, is in. Frage is a question. And stehen is to stand or standing. So literally it is a standing in question.
Beautiful. That's all I need. So what is enthinkment? And Ralph Pondy, it is the whole process of bringing into question everything about organizational behavior and organizations, et cetera. And that's this notion of bringing into question. That's all the man ever did, was bring things into question. So I understand myself, this is about myself now, as a projectedness of what I call bets on the future, anti-narrative bets on the future, is an existential possibility. The temporal future underlies this understanding. And that's what I've been calling enthinkment in the book I wrote. Now, let's go on to another point. Out of that current possibility, potentiality for being, now he's going to go a little deeper now in this section, a little bit deeper, he's shaving a little bit of meaning, going to go a little deeper. Projection is basically futural, meaning future. It's a tense of future. Not temporality yet, not temporality, not facts, not cognition, not thematics, rather looking, questioning, having an understanding, throws itself into futural as a possibility. So this is what I think Louis Ralph Pondy was doing, was looking at this futural. And this is why he had so much difficulty communicating it, or I'm putting words in his mouth. Let's just say I have difficulty communicating it because everybody's tied to retrospective, looking backwards, where I'm looking at futural as a possibility. Now, the bets on the future that I write about, the reality is to be a kind of existence, primordial, authentic. So that Bakhtein's getting, or it's not Bakhtin, but Heidegger's getting into that authentic, inauthentic, and that's going to be a major distinction coming up in a second here. So 336, we're still on that. We're coming towards the end of the section on 336. Therefore, temporality, direct quote, does not temporalize itself constantly out of the authentic future. That's an important point because he's going to differentiate between an authentic future and an inauthentic future. That's coming up. So, and he says the important word here is anticipation. Okay, the potentiality for being. Okay, so let's take this quote. The future itself must first win itself, not from a present, but from the inauthentic future. So the authentic future has to win itself over from the inauthentic future. And this is what you're doing in the questioning. So the question is, what is an authentic future? What is an inauthentic future? And what is an undifferentiated future? So you have three questions: undifferentiated, authentic, inauthentic, all about the future. First and foremost is care. Care is the ahead of itself, futurally, Dasein, constantly ahead of itself, but not always anticipating the existential possibility. In other words, it can be undifferentiated future. So it's caught in that quagmire of the undifferentiated, the authentic, and the inauthentic. Second point, the authentic future is revealed in resoluteness. Now, this is where I'm going to switch to my example of this septic tank. Three men, I'm going to send you pictures of this, and a front loader tractor were trying to pull the plug out of a septic tank. Think of a champagne bottle with a cork in it, although this cork is rather big and it's made of concrete. And we finally, swinging sledgehammers, each of us taking about 2 minutes, broke into that cork and were able to see that that is not a septic tank, that is a gray water tank, a rather big, huge gray water tank, 1,500 gallons. Wow. And so we drained that. And then for some reason, we had a test. We said, we're flushing all the toilets in the house at the same time, 3 toilets, flushed them all at the same time, and nothing overflowed. One was a little slow, and nothing came into the septic tank. And I'm sorry, what we thought was septic tank was not the septic tank because it's an authentic septic tank. It's not the authentic septic tank. So you can't even figure out what's an authentic septic tank. Okay. That is just weird. But the future is revealed in our resoluteness with our sledgehammers banging on that thing to reveal the identity of this tank, which we did because the tank usually has a divider in it. But this one didn't have a big divider in it. Therefore, it cannot be a septic tank. Septic tanks have a dividing wall, which separates the solid from the liquid. Let's get out of that example. In authentic future, we go back ontologically from the inauthenticity. Now let's go back to the sun. We now know that that's not an authentic septic tank. So the man gives us a probe, which is, you hook a garden hose to it. It's got a long pipe, shove it down in the ground, put the hose on, it goes. See if you can strike concrete anywhere. Because we have to deal with our inauthentic understanding and get to the undisputable in our everyday business. So then, since we're talking about business, many of us are business professors here, but Heidegger says this is not a concernful business, but it's the business that's being alongside Dasein. Dasein is relational, and concernful business kind of comes alongside the care and concern. If you read the whole book, it's all about the differentiation of care and concern. Like, you're concerned, but you're not caring. So there's a difference there. So we're awaiting a they self, the business concern. Like they are saying, the people who draw the the permits and file certain things. Well, it shouldn't be no more than 7 feet from the other tank, but we're not finding that to be true. So there's a potentiality there, but we're not finding it. So my anticipation is temporalized itself authentically in care. I'm caring for my wife, my property, the health of everybody who steps into this house is indisputable. And my bet on the future, primarily the futural, is I'm going to disclose my inauthentic understanding bit by bit as I become an authority of septic tanks in my present authentic temporality. And I'm going to have a moment of vision and I'm going to find that septic tank. And it's the object of my concern, but my bet is held in resoluteness until I find it. And then I will experience rapture. I'm quoting Heidegger, rapture. Rapture means, applies to be the ambassador in the now. Like when we broke through the plug, we had 3 men in rapture with sledgehammers and we were triumphant. So encountering the future in a time as ready to hand over the septic to the septic truck. It's present at hand somewhere in the ground, but it's not ready to hand. And that concludes my presentation.